I've got a non-psychedelic story today, but it is still kind of psychedelic because if you do cannabis right, you can get psychedelic. Marijuana components show promising potential as anti-cancer agents, study finds. Mechanisms of action are still. New scientific review on cannabis and cancer concludes that a variety of cannabinoids, including delta-9 THC, CBD, and cannabigerol, CBG, show promising potential as anti-cancer agents through various mechanisms, for example, by limiting the growth and spread. Authors acknowledge that obstacles to incorporating cannabis into cancer treatment remain, such as regulatory barriers and the need to determine optimal dosing. Cannabinoids, including delta-9 THC, CBD, and CBG, exhibit significant anti-cancer activities such as apoptosis induction, autophagy stimulation, cell cycle arrest, anti-proliferation, anti-angiogenesis, and metastasis inhibition, which is basically just saying they make the cells die prematurely because they are unhealthy, keep them from making new blood vessel inroads into the tumors, and they arrest the cell cycle, which means, again, they shut down the cycle of reproduction. This report was published late last month in the journal Discover Oncology. Clinical trials have demonstrated cannabinoids' efficacy in tumor regression and health improvement in palliative care. The workings behind those apparent benefits, however, are still largely unknown. The evident anti-cancer properties of cannabinoids from numerous experimental results, the review says, the exact mechanisms of action still require extensive research. Let's smoke a bunch of weed this week, you guys. We got research to do. Cannabinoids derived from plants, synthesized naturally in the human body, or produced artificially in laboratories, have demonstrated considerable therapeutic potential. Cannabis has been used medicinally for centuries in Asian and South Asian countries. The renaissance in therapeutic cannabinoids has sparked renewed research interest, extending their use to various medical conditions and cancer. Expanding our understanding of these mechanisms and their interactions with cancer cells, they conclude, better harness their therapeutic potential in oncology. Among the varieties of cancers covered in the research, breast cancer, glioma, leukemia, lung cancer, melanoma. Analysis also looked at the use of marijuana in palliative care, which is dying. People undergoing chemotherapy, noting that cannabinoids are significant in the palliative care as well as it helps in appetite regulation of pain, along with anti-nausea role. Some research also indicates that cannabinoids might have synergistic effects with chemotherapy, according to the review. Research suggests that cannabinoids may enhance the cytotoxic effects of chemotherapy through several mechanisms. For instance, cannabidiol, CBD, and delta-9 THC have been shown to induce apoptosis and reduce cell proliferation used in conjunction with certain chemotherapeutic agents. These cannabinoids modulate key pathways involved in cell cycle regulation and apoptosis, thereby increasing the susceptibility of cancer cells to chemotherapy-induced death. Cannabis is widely used to treat certain symptoms of cancer and some side effects of cancer treatment. Long been interest in the possible effects of cannabinoids on cancer itself. Scientific review of CBD earlier this year touched on diverse anti-cancer properties of cannabinoids that the authors said present promising opportunities for future therapeutic interventions and treatment. Research published late last year found that marijuana use was associated with improved cognition and reduced pain among cancer patients and people receiving chemotherapy. While cannabis produces intoxicating effects and that initial high can temporarily impair cognition, patients who use marijuana products from state-licensed dispensaries over 2 weeks actually started reporting clearer thinking. This study from the University of Colorado found. I think this is great news, and I'd love to see more research on this. Anything we can do to halt the spread of cancer is a great thing, and I'm looking forward to hearing both what my fellow correspondents and our host Jason Beck has to say about this. This is St. Germain on a Monday for the High at 9 News. Take it away, y'all.
Man, you know, I find this super interesting because now it seems as though, Mathieu St. Germain, that the researchers are as smart as the general public, because they're basically saying, hey, we know that this works, but we can't explain how it works because we can't figure it out yet.
And that's a role of good science, and good science that hasn't been overly affected by public policy and donations is not stating things that have not been proven through verifiable peer-reviewed studies. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, it's one thing to say that's a way that science protects us, because anyone can say, oh, look, I've got the healing super mouse. If you pay me $10,000, I'll come over and rub it on you, and it gets rid of all cancer.
Yeah.
And if we don't have the bulwark of science and medicine, although I know there are a ton of problems with it right now as well, People are then susceptible to quackery, faith healing, etc. On the converse, we also have the side of pharma industry and the science industry being corrupted by those same wills to money and power. I think we all need to continue to refine the system so it serves us more than serving itself, the powers that be. Good news is smoke weed, it's good for you.
I'm with that.
Amazing.
Yes, weed for the people, baby. Yarrow, are you with us?
I am.
Okay.
And what troubles me about this article,
Oh, boy.
There it is.
Yeah, I was waiting for that.
what troubles me about this article is that, to me, this is the research equivalent of blue balls. I mean, we've been sitting here talking about the potential promise and the need for more research and the complexity of understanding over 150 different cannabinoids, much less the relationship between those cannabinoids and different concentrations or the interactions or synergistic effects of terpenes for a really long time. And I think it's going to require some angry, impatient people to say enough of talk about promise. We really need to start putting our money where our mouth is. And funding research and allowing research to occur within the United States and not just in Israel, not just overseas, yada, yada, yada. And so I'm not surprised by any of what this article has to say. I just think that any article that ends with this idea that we need more research, like, well, under what condition does that we finally get a green light to conduct that research domestically with flush funding mechanisms so that that work can be done?
I think what we really need, and I talked about this before, and I've actually been fighting a bit and trying to get people to help, because when it comes to like business and public policy, I'm an idiot. But at the same time, what we really need is a non-governmental agency that is pointed at the FDA, a public policy foundation that is a for-profit foundation that people can then donate to so they can get that money off of their taxes. It lobbies the FDA for, number one, a new research track that deals with plant and fungal medicinal sources that are not single molecule sources, and a funding avenue that isn't that does not require the end product of an FDA study a patentable molecule. So it would be a public policy foundation that would put money towards these studies, towards single molecule therapies that are not patentable, that could have great benefit for humans, as well as synergistic either plant, like ayahuasca, plant admixtures, and or plant or fungal compounds that contain a variety of alkaloids and other active ingredients. Until we have those research tracks in the FDA, this research is going to constantly be stymied and held back because of those particular problems. And that's why we see, for instance, cannabis research lagging behind psilocybin research. Because when we say psilocybin, we think mushrooms, because that's how we grew up interacting with psilocybin. But they're not doing mushroom research. What they're doing is they're doing psilocybin research with synthetic psilocybin molecules, right? They don't even do research on mushrooms, which in Europe are being shown, the mushroom and the full spectrum healing abilities of mushrooms are shown to be far more powerful than the single molecule therapy of psilocybin therapy. Really, it speaks to the way our system runs, the need to for a whole new track. Sorry, Jenny, go ahead.
Well, there's a larger issue overall that, right? And it's that until we have dealt with the federal illegality of cannabis, we are relegated to preclinical trials. We're not allowed to do clinical trials on a federally illicit substance. So we need a full deschedule so that we can actually do the research, get these actual clinical trials on humans. So we have this actually empirically verifiable data so that we can then turn around and say, hey, yes, medicine, told you so, here's how we told you so, and here's the scientific reason. And that's what it's going to take for people to start to understand. However, a reschedule is not going to do it, because then we're going to lock ourselves out of the fucking industry. So we need a full deschedule to be able to unlock all of these issues.
Fair enough, Jenny Beth, and maybe that's why they do want to go with a reschedule, because once they isolate all of these different compounds within cannabis, when the doctors prescribe something to you, they're going to be prescribing 30, 40, 50 bottles at a time for you for all these compounds, so then that way you have the full spectrum effect.
I mean, there's that, but I think it's more about locking down the fact that you're going to have a DEA license if we do a stupid reschedule as it's proposed right now to be able to sell cannabis, which puts all of us out of business for the most part, right? There are very few, there's like 6 DEA licenses that have cannabinoid things going on, right? And that's for a reason, because they're pushing for this. Who do you think is lobbying for a reschedule instead of a frickin' deschedule? It's those people that are big pharma that want to lock us out. It's the government trying to, and I've always said this, we're not going to fully legalize cannabis until the government figures out how to fully monetize it for themselves. And that's what we're looking at.
Interesting.
Government does hold the patents for THC and CBD.
And to be fair, in this article, it talks about a $3.2 million grant for the National Institute of Health. So that's obviously domestic. And to be fair, this is also from the National Cancer Institute's journal. And so there are some attempts on a federal level to continue to push forward the science in spite of the current issues that we all know and we've talked about at length, ad nauseum here on the show. The thing for me is like, look, I got family members that have cancer right fucking now, and they've had cancer for a long time. And if we cure cancer through the use of cannabinoids as a result of research, and it happens after those people in my family have expired, I'm still going to be that angry elf on the shelf. I'm going to say it's great that we got to the outcome we wanted to get to, which was unlocking and understanding of this plant and the ways in which it can be therapeutic. But at what was the price? How many people suffered or how many people perished that maybe didn't need to that degree? And so, yeah, I'm proudly impatient and angry at the rate of change, which I think on some levels almost criminal.
And all right, well, we're gonna keep this train rolling, and we did have some results from this poll. What's your favorite flower to consume? LED, 28%, HPS, 22%. I can't believe that, but sun-grown, 38%. You guys, a lot of you guys. Man, ouch, ouch, ouch.
Let me find out. Swami voted in our poll 18 times.
And people that are
grown
and people that are just confused. There's 12% of y'all that don't understand what any of that means. It means you need to watch the show a little more.
So that 12% with the margin of error between HPS and LED calls into question the results of this poll. Plus, we also know that if you're buying regulated cannabis,
this was not done. This was not done on a Dominion voting machine, bro. Stop the ridiculous.
No, you're right. Otherwise, it probably would have been more safe. I get that. But nonetheless, the other thing we need to remember is that the majority of jars of cannabis in regulated stores don't indicate what the light source was. Like, they may say, hey, this is sun-grown, or hey, this is indoor. But
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That had nothing to do with the question.
Well, actually, it does matter, because if people are getting their cannabis from regulated stores where the packaging doesn't indicate the source of illumination, then any of the cannabis they get from those stores, how are they going to make an opinion, an educated opinion about what they prefer? So either they're getting that from the trap, or they're getting it from prior to having those programs in their state, or they're
growing it themselves, Yarrow.
I hope we have that level of home growers.
You ever think about that? You ever think about that?
I mean, that would make me giddy.
I mean, fair enough. As Yarrow gets giddy, we're going to go to a commercial break.